What auditors will look for. The auditor will look at everything. They'll look at your governance, your business plan. They'll look at your own screening checks, your own license. They'll start with you and then they'll branch out into the organization. They'll look at service agreements. They'll look at invoicing to make sure it matches up. The auditor will literally look at everything. But some things that they really do focus their time on is a complaints register, ensuring there's been outcomes recorded, an incident register that shows that actions are being closed out, or if they haven't been closed out, why are they still being investigated? They'll also look at your incident register. Even though you're not registered yet, they'll also have a look and see, is anything reportable to the Commission? And if it hasn't been reported, they'll ask you why it wasn't reported. They'll also report that back to the Commission. They'll look at your risk framework and they'll make sure it's been actively maintained. So looking at participant risk profiles, risk assessments on particular activities, loading and unloading the wheelchair, for example, the risk management plan associated with loading and unloading John's wheelchair. And they'll also want to make sure that there's a sign-off for each support worker, staff member to those three things. They'll also want to see the organisational overall risk assessment register. Worker screening, induction, training matrix, spoken a lot about that, I'm sorry. Supervision notes, emergency drills and plans. So those things, guaranteed if you don't have that, you're not providing services anymore because you're waiting until after October to get registered. SIL specific evidence. So they'll look at the participant files and individual support plans. Now, one big thing I want to mention on this is everyone who's got an NDIS plan, well, not everybody, that's probably a misconception, but a lot of people with NDIS plans have goals in their plan. Most of those goals, unfortunately, are just copied and pasted. So John wants to live independently. John wants to learn how to cook. John wants to get his license. John wants to go temp and bowling on a Thursday. Unfortunately, you see a lot of the same goals repeat in participant plans, and they just change the first name. Whether or not that's because the planner didn't ask the right questions, whether or not the person turning up for the plan review didn't have the evidence they needed as a COS or a SIL manager or whatever, who knows? But you see a lot of it repeated. When you write the participant individual support plan, you should take into account what the NDIS plan goals are. So that's really important. That's their NDIS plan. That's their document. But you should also talk about and unpack it a little bit more on their day-to-day goals, their month-to-month goals, their year-to-year goals. And you should build support plans based around those goals. So break down even more. How's John going to get to temp in bowling? Okay, he's going to catch a bus. And then he's going to have lunch there. And he's going to catch a bus on the way home, stop and see his brother Kevin, who hasn't seen for 3 months. Break down the goal even more and build it into an activity on a support plan. Because that shows the auditor that all of those SIL practice centres we spoke about earlier, living as independent as possible, as autonomous as possible, making decisions around their life. Now in their support plan, you're putting that into practice. And you're not just taking the 4 standard goals in their plan as gospel, you're breaking it down even more and building a plan around achieving that goal. Participant consent and risk reviews, service agreements and tenancy documents clearly separated. House meeting, roster of care records, and making sure that all of this is well documented. It's all stored away in a file system as live documents. You've got a regular ongoing action plan for your meetings and your roster of cares, etc. All really important things to have in place.